Let's go. It's that time of the year. We're back at it. From now until we're done doing the rest of the teams, 32, we're going to be doing our all 32 series. The breakdown of this is going over the 2024 season, kind of just giving like a complete overview of what happened and what we thought about it at that time now that we're kind of a few months removed. Some key stats from last season. Then we go into the 2025 offseason, like NFL draft, and then we will go over some gambling stuff, win totals, MVPs, whatever. However, if somebody is on that team that could potentially have an MVP, talk about that a little bit, or any other awards. And then lastly, we will give our prediction for the 2025 season, and we're going to go in descending order. So to start, we are going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles, which, first off, congrats. That is your favorite team, and they brought home a Super Bowl and finally slayed the dragon in Patrick Mahomes after a down year last year, coming back after losing in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and then finally getting the job done this year.
Yeah, it was a great resurgence. It was a phenomenal year. I'm appreciative of it every day, but that was last year. New Year's right around the corner. A lot of the guys in training camp have basically been saying, we're not defending last year. We're here to worry about this year, attack this year. And that's my mindset as an Eagles fan as well. But the Eagles did a lot of good things. Did a couple things. There was a couple things they could have done better, but all in all, great season, Super Bowl champions. Looking forward to 2025.
So to recap the 2024 season, the Philadelphia Eagles went 14-3, first in the NFC East, 3 losses. Looking back on it, it's like almost like a little interesting. Atlanta Falcons, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Todd Bowles has the absolute blueprint on Jalen Hurts for whatever reason that might be, and the Eagles in general, and the Washington Commanders, and that's because Kenny Pickett played.
Yeah, I'll say the beginning of the season, starting out 2-2, I wouldn't have necessarily. I guess I did say at the beginning of last year when we were doing this that I did expect a slower start from this Eagles team with the amount of new guys and the amount of just new that was coming with this team. Two new coordinators, bunch of new guys. So I guess the 2-2 start didn't necessarily surprise me. The one game they did lose to Tampa Bay, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown were both out. So that'll definitely put a damper on things, make it a little bit harder as an offense. But the game against the Commanders that they lost down the stretch was almost inexcusable. But I got to give credit to Jaden Daniels because he put up an absolutely insane fourth quarter to bring them back and win them that football game. So I'll give credit where credit is due there. But I wasn't necessarily shocked. Defense was not. But again, a lot of new on coaching and guys on defense. So like I said, wasn't necessarily surprised with the slow start. But
the playoff run then was Green Bay in the wild card round, which they beat them 22-10, beat them twice during the season. Then they played the Los Angeles Rams, the 28-22 win. We'll talk about that
twice as well.
Yeah, beat them twice as well. We'll get to that when we preview the Rams. I think that victory is that win and that narrow loss by the Rams is like completely overblown by like the media and the Rams fans and everything like that. Like the Eagles took care of business. So, and then they go and absolutely thump the Washington Commanders 55-23. Then from there, after that, we met on this podcast to sit here and talk about what could potentially happen in the Super Bowl. And you didn't say it, but you're a fan and that makes sense. And I pretty much was like, yeah, I've seen enough from the Eagles. I genuinely think that they're going to smack the Kansas City Chiefs, double-digit win. And I don't think anybody was really saying that because obviously the Patrick Mahomes thing, but we were on the Kansas City Chiefs were bad trained the entire season, no matter how many games that they won, no matter what happened. We were like, they're not good. And when it came time to when the Eagles played them, I was like, the Eagles are legitimately better at every single position, like
Yeah.
other than quarterback, which I'm not even gonna say anything too crazy about that because each time that Jalen Hurts has played Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, he has outdueled him massively. Like he
Yeah.
has outplayed him and put up a better game. And the first time they played, I mean, people were even potentially throwing out the idea that Jalen Hurts could win MVP as like on a losing team. So I'm not going to say that in that when it was played out, like it was like, okay, like Jalen Hurts played better than Patrick Mahomes that night. But going into the game, every single position on offense and defense, the Eagles had a better player at that position than the Kansas City Chiefs did. And they ultimately won that game 40-22. And it's really not that fair to use that score because it was 34-6 going into the fourth quarter. The Eagles legitimately pulled all their players. Like
Yeah.
they had,
Yeah.
and people love to show that Xavier Worthy touchdown, and then you like look at the players who are on the field, and it's like Sidney Brown and like every single backup secondary
All
member,
the
and it's
backup
like
defensive linemen. Like it was belt to ass. It was a 40-point win in the Super Bowl if you watched the game, and the score didn't accurately reflect that. I couldn't have said it any better. Uh, the Eagles were just better at every position than the Chiefs were in that Super Bowl, and Jalen Hurts has played some of his best games against the Chiefs and against Patrick Mahomes
in the
um,
Super Bowl
in the Super Bowl. So,
when it
like,
matters most.
yep,
So shout out to them. I mean, all time run. Um, Obviously that LA game, people really blew out of the water. We'll get into that at a later date, but looking back on it, like watching that game again and what happened, I just feel like everybody was really, really acting like that was like the Rams game to lose. I just didn't feel that way, like going back to it and revisiting, but that's just me.
I mean, every game I was besides the NFC Championship versus the Commanders, I was relatively nervous for that game against the Rams, and then obviously against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I thought those two were um, a little bit iffy, but I felt really good going into that Packers game, and I felt really good going into that Commanders game. I mean, they handled business against them the first time, and had Jalen not gotten hurt the second time they played and the defense not absolutely crumbled in the fourth quarter, I think they would have ended up beating him 3 times last season. So I felt good about those going into those 2 games, but admittedly, I was nervous for that Rams game. But again, they took care of business. And like you said, we'll touch on that when we go to the Rams.
Stat snapshot: points for 463, seventh in the NFL. Points against 302, second in the NFL. Offense was ranked 29th in passing, but second in rushing. Offensive DVOA 14th in the NFL. So they were above that halfway point of being like the more efficient offenses in the entire league, mainly because of the run game, as we just kind of touched on. And then defensive DVOA, second in the NFL, way better than league average. They were historically great on defense last season.
I have a bunch of stats about the resurgence of this Eagles defense under Vic Fangio. And I feel like now is probably a good time to read them off. So that defense was number 2 in points per drive, number 3 in punts per drive, number 1 in 3 and out rate, and they were number 7 in yards per drive. One of the big issues with the Eagles in 2023 was they were really bad in the red zone, and they were really, really bad on third down. And it felt like anytime anybody was getting into the red zone, it was going to result in points. And anytime you had to throw the football on third down, you were going at Slay or you were going at Bradbury, and odds are you were moving the chains. So upon the arrival of Vic Fangio, they improved from 31st in the red zone to 5th. and then 32nd against third down passes to second and third down passes. So you keep teams out of the end zone, you keep teams from moving the chains, you're going to have a lot of success on defense. And clearly that's what happened.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Do you have any more stats that you want to go into? Obviously, the big elephant in the room and everything like that is just the passing offense. I think going into any Eagles season, no matter who they have on the offensive line, no matter who's the running back, you expect more from this passing game. You have to. You have a very talented tight end. You have Saquon Barkley, who can be a receiving back if he needs to be. You have Devonta Smith, who we talked about many times, who we think is extremely talented. And you have a top 10, I personally think a top 5 wide receiver in A.J. Brown. That's something that you need to get figured out. And then also on top of that, you traded for a former first-round pick in Jahad Dotson. There's a lot of talented pass catchers like on this entire roster across the board. I think going into any season, you probably would expect a lot more from the Eagles passing game, regardless of how amazing the rushing game is. You definitely need more from the passing game.
I do have a couple other things to talk about as far as stats go before touching on the passing game portion of this. So the Eagles did win the turnover margin with plus 11. They were 8-2 in one score games. They were 1-2 in field goal games. So, which I didn't actually realize that they were 1-2 in those field goal games, but a team that wins 14 games, I would assume, is normally going to have the luck of the draw sometimes in those one score games.
Well, they did games by one possession. They went 8-2 last season.
Yep. So the way that I had it is one score games, which was 8 or less. Obviously, they were 8-2, and then field goal games 3 or less, 1-2. But yeah, people look at the offense and look at the passing yards per game, and obviously that's not great. I think I try to think about it this way. Obviously, like the safe answer is like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And in terms of like your offense is moving the football, you're scoring, you're winning games, right? But in a deeper, more critical level, with the amount of talent that the Eagles have, they shouldn't be sitting there at 29. At the bare minimum, I think you have to be sitting at like the league average.
League average for sure.
I think that should be the bare minimum for this offense from a passing perspective. There's just too many options that you have that are really freaking talented to get the football to outside of Saquon Barkley for them to be sitting at 29th. But that is me that's me like putting this through this isn't the analyst perspective. As a fan, I don't care. I just want to win. But I'm taking the fan hat off and putting on
I think though, like just resources, what they have all their resources towards is like this offense was 14th in DVOA. So right up at that league average mark, pretty much. It's not like this was a historic offense and we can kind of just be like, okay, like it is what it is. Like this team is just historically great, regardless of the pass. Like they were still sitting around like that halfway mark. And you would just think if they were even a little bit better on offense. And this is nitpicking just because
correct.
We're going to get into this. Like the more and more we talk about it when we're going over them is like, we just talked a little bit about like one possession games. They went 8-2 in one possession games last year. Historically, teams with 6 or more wins in one possession games tend to regress the next year. So if the defense isn't catching every single break, if they're not forcing punts at like a rapid rate, which I will get into about the defense in a little bit, but that is just something that you would like to see take a step forward this upcoming season. And probably now the way that the offense is set up, like that should never happen ever again, having this bad of a passing offense.
Yeah. And my expectation for this year is that this offense from a passing perspective is going to be better. I mean, Saquon Barkley had a historical year running the football, and I don't think it's realistic to expect him to put up the same numbers or better. So I think that means that the offense is going to have to be better from a passing perspective, and I think it will be. I think they'll realize that Saquon's not going to be able to rush for 200 yards every single game.
So I actually want to go into that. There's two things I want to highlight real quick, and then I want to go into the Saquon factor of this, because the key stats, the time of possession was 32 minutes and 22 seconds per game. That was first. They literally dominated time of possession. I just wanted to touch on that real quick, but with the Saquon aspect of this now, like I'm thinking about like the potential durability and demand of what is expected of him in Philly right now. Since he's been in the league, he's played 16 games, 13 games, 2 games, 13 games, 16 games, 14 games, 16 games. He's always due to miss a few games a year, just naturally. And then now that he has had that heavier workload with historical volume, post-season included 482 touches. That was ranking higher than anybody since 2000. Since, to put this in perspective of guys who have had similar types of workload, DeMarco Murray had 492 touches in 2014, and then in 2015 he played 8 games. In 2006, Larry Johnson had 470 touches, and in the next season played 8 games. From a fan perspective, and if you want to take the fan hat off, does it make you nervous at all if we go off just history that everyone that has had this sort of output the next season automatically misses pretty much half the year?
I will say Larry Johnson, that's my dog. I wish the Chiefs wouldn't have run him into the ground, but back to the Eagles. Do I expect Saquon to only play like 8 games? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think it's more reasonable to go into the season with the expectations of, hey, he just played an insane amount of football in one season, more than he ever has. I would love, at the bare minimum, I would love for him to play like 13 to 14 full games.
Well, you would like to probably have him play the entire season.
Right. But yes, of course. But if there is, like, if I'm setting at a number, I need him to play in like 13 to 14 games for me to be like, okay, this is good. I also think those 2 seasons that you mentioned were 10 plus years ago each. And I think recovery has gotten a little better since then. And I think that helps too. But at the end of the day, I don't know how much you can necessarily recover when you're getting banged in the head for 17 to 18 to 20 weeks a season. So yeah, in short answer, yes, I am a little nervous about it, because not just because of the history that you provided, but just Saquon's history in general.
Yeah, his own history too,
yeah.
of just being unlucky. I mean, obviously the ACL tear, the ankle injury, just being banged up in general. He's had that history of not being fully healthy. This was a season where he was fully healthy, and he got ran into the ground for the season, the postseason run, the Super Bowl. And that is a long season with a lot of touches. And now they're turning around and going into this season. Like I said, this is going back to what we were just talking about with the passing offense and everything like that. The durability and demand to expect Saquon Barkley and lean on him the way that they did last season, I don't think it's sustainable. And 2, if that happens, I just think that there could be an argument made that just based on history, and I'm not hoping that he gets hurt, obviously. I'm a big Saquon Barkley fan.
Yeah,
but just being cautious of the fact that like this could be a possibility of like, we can't put too much stress on this guy because we want him in the playoffs when it matters most. And this 17 game season is important, but we know once we get to that time in the playoffs, we can take off. So I'm thinking about what is the type of demand that he's going to get from this offense this year. And that's another reason why I said I want to see the passing offense take a step forward.
Yeah, I think he was probably getting like 25 on average carries a game last year. Probably
I'm
somewhere
not sure.
around that. Which that's a lot for one guy to go through a season of 20. I think he might have sat out like one game
yeah, the end of
or
the
like
year, I think.
a combine of like 2 games as far as like fourth quarter moments here and there where he didn't play. So like realistically, he played 22 games last season. Of course, I'm going to be worried about that a little bit. And that's why I expected the passing offense to be better, is because I don't think they're going to, I think they're going to pick and choose their spots where they feel like they have to lean on Saquon Barkley to go out there and get a win.
Another reason why I say this is I didn't think that the running back room was crazy last year at all, by any stretch of the imagination last year for the Eagles at all. This season, going into the season, we and you have had like different like viewpoints on this, but like this running back room is bad. Saquon, who's the best, and then it's Will Shipley, AJ Dillon, and Avery Williams. I don't really know who Avery Williams is, to be honest with you. AJ Dillon is completely cooked. He isn't good. He hasn't looked good in years. He plays Farming Simulator and collects Pokemon cards. And then Will Shipley, say what you want about him. I know fans will. What's not to like about a feisty white running back who can come in at the end of the fourth quarter when he's been sitting all game and all season, and he can provide a spark, and people think that that's like lightning in a bottle and he can replicate that. If Will Shipley is your lead back at any point in the season, the Eagles are in trouble, because that is a bad running back room. So I'm actually curious, and I don't know if there's a veteran out there or whatever who could potentially get brought into this running back room before the season starts. You always see an older guy kind of get brought in at some point. But just right now, if Saquon Barkley goes down, I think that this running back room goes from like an A+ to like an F, like very quick.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My reasoning for liking Will Shipley is not necessarily because of what we saw late in games. It's not even like a Will Shipley thing. We sat here and watched Miles Sanders rush for 1,000 yards for a couple seasons behind this Eagles offensive line, and it has been proven that Miles Sanders is just a very average to below average running back in the NFL. So obviously the running
was that
game
also the season where he didn't score a touchdown?
Probably
it was.
But
so I don't
if you
think
get to the
everybody always
line
knew
every
that.
drive, like
everybody always knew that Miles Sanders stunk. If you didn't know that, then you're just a knob. But like when I get what you're saying, but when you got the amount of volume that like Miles did when he was playing at that time, like Miles is clearly a better athlete than like Will Shipley. Like I think we can agree on that. I think that I would give like the nod of like who's a better running back to Miles Sanders over Will Shipley. Yes. I think that like if you were to give Will Shipley a full workload, you could probably be pretty upset with the output that you're going to get.
Right, but I think that is pretty fair for a lot of the running back rooms in the NFL, to the point of like, if you're giving your number 2 running back a full number 1 workload, then
I disagree. I really do.
I just
there's a lot of teams in the NFL who have a pretty balanced. There's a lot of teams, I'd say probably well over half of the teams in the NFL who have a pretty good balance at running back.
We haven't even really seen enough of Will Shipley to be able to fully say, okay, this guy is.
Listen, if you want to fall on the sword,
I'm falling on the offensive line. I will give my soul to the Eagles' offensive line. That's where this confidence comes from. I don't think you're going to be happy if your number 2 running back on a lot of teams is taking number 1 amount of reps, but like, how many teams are taking into account like playing into every season? Okay, yeah, Saquon Barkley's going to get hurt. Derrick Henry's going to get hurt. McCaffrey, like I don't really.
I mean, today the 49ers just had Jeff Wilson Jr. and somebody else. Like they have guys who can come.
Yeah, those guys are better, but they are better than Will Shipley. But like, I'm still not going out there and being like, yeah, I feel really good about Jeff Wilson being my running back
right now.
The rest of the season.
If the Eagles came in, let me read the report real quick. But if the Eagles came in and brought, it was Jeff Wilson Jr. and Dearness Johnson, like both of those guys are better than Will Shipley, 100%.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson Jr. I don't know about the other guy, but
Dearness Johnson was the bull in Cleveland who was cutting up last season.
Was that him?
Yes.
I thought it was somebody else. I thought Dearness
When
Johnson
Jerome
was like
Ford
an
went
old,
down, Dearness Johnson, he was on the Jaguars, and he's a good pass catching back. Like, I'm just saying that I would like to see, this is just me. I would like to see the Eagles bring in a better veteran that if Saquon were to get banged up, there was a better option behind him than what they have right now. That's it.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with that point 100%. I would love there to be a little bit more balance. That way, Saquon doesn't have to take 25 to 30 snaps in a game. And then you get to the first round of the playoffs, and it's like, okay,
now
he cut his workload down an entire quarter of what he had last season. He's ready to go. I completely agree with you there.
I do think, though, that you're sleeping on the fact of how many 1-2 combos there are across the league. There are guys like that could easily step in the role and be a number one running back, I think, if given the opportunity. I just don't think Will Shipley's that guy.
I don't expect Will Shipley to be that guy either, but
yeah,
hopefully he doesn't get to that point.
Yeah, just this last thing I'll say.
Something to think about.
This is the last thing I'll say and move on. A team who was so heavily relied upon the run last season. That is something that I thought, like looking at this, like prepping for this, I was like, I'm really shocked that they didn't try to upgrade this running back room more. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think AJ Dillon is. I don't even know if AJ Dillon's going to make the team.
He is cooked, bro. I don't know what happened to him. He was like low key tough for like a year or two.
Yeah, he was.
Key storylines from the 2024 season. Do you have any? I have one. I have a big one, and I want to see how your reaction to it.
Well, I have like the key matchups and like the big games that I thought were like significant throughout the season, if that counts.
We will get to that at
down the road.
We'll get to that. Okay. Let me do that.
Go ahead.
The key storyline is going to piss you off. The key storyline of the 2024 NFL season for the Philadelphia Eagles. All of the good that happened, the amazing run that they had, the whole nine. The Eagles locker room at times feels like it gets absolutely controlled by the media and the fans. 150%. Late November, Jalen Hurts on the passing game criticism. It's easy to point fingers, but when we win and lose as a team, we're going through the bumps. Everybody's on the same page. Mid-December, A.J. Brown calls out the offense. We can't keep hiding behind the run. We need to get better, and it starts with accountability in here.
You're the media. You're ruining the locker room.
This is your guys. Devontae Smith on the locker room dynamics. We got great talent. Sometimes it feels like we aren't rowing the boat in the same direction. It's a long season. We have to figure it out fast. Sirianni acknowledges team friction. We had moments where things aren't clicking offensively. That's tough on everyone. The players are competitors. They want to win. They can lead to heated discussions. That's part of growth. We had a team who won 14 games last year, who was beyond dominant, where it feels like at times there are extremely weird stories and dialogue coming out from vets in the locker room, like Brandon Graham going on the radio, from the head coach, from the leaders of the football team and the offense. And it feels like at times these guys are legitimately mental midgets. So going into the 2025 season, I look at what's happened in the 2023 season when they had that all-time collapse in the back half of the season, losing in the first round of the playoffs. I look at what happened in a front half of the season to the mid part of the season where these are some quotes into late December that we're talking about here. Why is it that the Eagles feel like the only team in the NFL where like this stuff gets very, very publicized, And does it worry you at all that there are some guys in the locker room who are kind of mental midgets? Because I'll let you go after I say this. My interpretation of this is a Sirianni problem. The way that he goes about handling these situations. And listen, we're talking about an extremely successful football team. This isn't a team that's like bad. Like they're good. They've been good for the last 4 years, and they were good. They had like one down year in the last like however long. Like, why is that always kind of a talking point around this football team when I feel like it just shouldn't be at all? Saquon actually did a good job of balancing that this season because he seems very level-headed and strong. But like even with adding Saquon into that scenario, it was still hard to juggle all of these other personalities.
I think that part of it is pretty important. What you just said is like you get the big name guys and everybody wants to win. Everybody wants the football. I don't have an answer necessarily. I just think that is the makeup of the core of this team's dynamic. And
can we agree upon one thing right now? It's weird. Like, yeah, I know that like you are like sometimes you're like, this doesn't matter. Like this matters. I don't care what you say at all. Having stuff like this come out like during a tear through the league. like not like they're not like just like playing okay. Like this is like they're on like a tear. Like it is weird. And I just think it's concerning where to go back just a little bit, like these one possession football games, you lose close games. Like is the mental makeup of this team a house of cards? And if Xavier Legette doesn't drop a touchdown, this is such a hypothetical, but doesn't drop the game-winning touchdown, like does that house of cards fall because of how much the faces of the team are like vocal towards like the media and everybody else?
I almost look at it this way that so Jalen is very level-headed. Saquon was super level-headed. I think as long as Jalen's level-headed, I think things will be fine. I noticed that nothing was coming from the side of the defense. It's always going to come from the offense. Yeah. I mean, Brandon Graham, that guy was a rotational defensive lineman. So he
almost threw the season away.
I know that what Chickies and Pete's, and he was freaking
why did he do
crazy.
That? Why did he? That is still like the most baffling thing ever. And then he was like, "No, that actually like isn't happening."
It didn't happen.
Why'd you say that? Why'd you say it then?
I don't know. That was crazy. And I will say, like, I noticed that it is primarily an offensive thing, and like guys weren't happy with being 29th in passing yards per game, I guess. Which is fair. I wouldn't be either if I'm AJ Brown and I'm Devontae Smith. But like, I think as long as Jalen is level-headed, Saquon's level-headed, kind of balances out some of the maniacs in the locker room. And then the defense was was a bigger issue 2 years ago than the offense. That was my biggest concern about this team moving forward because of just how god awful it was. And none of those guys on the defensive side of the ball, until CJ Gardner-Johnson pretty much left, did you really hear anything about the defense. And as long as that's all right, and Jalen and Saquon are kind of all there to like balance everything out, I'm just gonna have to accept that Smitty and AJ Brown are gonna complain at least once a season.
Okay, that's fair. Just obviously something to keep a tab on, I think, going into this season, because I look at it as a house of cards. Like if something goes wrong, like if you guys aren't winning these close football games, like is everybody going to start crashing out? Like because you're not winning 15 games, like, and you might win 9 or 10. Like I hope that that's not the case, because this is like a generational makeup of a group. But I guess we'll see. My question for you on the games that mattered most, would this be more of a like schedule review / like revenge angle coming into this season, or just you're highlighting some of the 2024 season accolades or whatever?
Oh, I just have 2 games from the 2024 year that
Let's hear it.
I thought were pretty significant.
Let's hear
Um,
it.
I thought week 12 and week 13. So week 12 was a win against the Los Angeles Rams. That was when Saquon had 26 carries for 255 and 2 touchdowns. This was a game that a lot of people kind of picked the Rams to win, and
They
I
did. I remember this.
I really felt that this was one of those goal stepping stone moments. These 2 weeks, 12 and 13, were those like 2 stepping stone moments for me when I was watching this, that were like, oh, holy shit, this team has it. Like, they're
Yeah, they
really
can win
good.
it all.
Yeah. And obviously Saquon went crazy against the Rams in that game. And then week 13 against the Ravens in Baltimore,
Crazy.
they came out and won against one of the best teams in the NFL.
Easily.
Another game that people were skeptical about the Eagles going in and winning. I mean, Lamar played well. He was 23 for 36, 236 yards and 2 touchdowns, but like, the Eagles defense did a great job of just bottling them up, and they offense did enough to win. So like, those 2 games really stood out to me, aside from obviously the playoff games, but those were 2 games that were really big in my opinion from last year.
Amazingly put. That Rams game, everybody definitely had the Rams to win that game. People thought the Eagles were going to be like on a little bit of a downtick when they started playing like an elite quote unquote team in the NFC, and they came out and handled business, and it was like, oh, okay, like the Rams, and that was a game where the Rams just didn't look like anything was clicking for them. So
no.
All right, so the 2025 offseason, I'm just going to start with the roster losses, and if I'm missing any of them, just let me know. Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Isaiah Rodgers, Oren Burks, Kenneth Gainwell, Darius Slay, James Bradbury, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Brandon Graham to retirement, correct?
Yeah.
I said Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, right?
Yep.
And then Mekhi Becton.
Yep.
And then lastly, they traded away Kenny Pickett, which might be the worst move of the entire offseason.
Okay.
No, just kidding. Am I missing any of those? And are there any of these guys on this list that you're going to miss going into this upcoming season?
No, you hit everybody. You hit like the main guys that like actually are on teams now. A couple guys I'm gonna miss. I know that CJ Gardner-Johnson was like not considered that great of a safety, but that guy was just like a fucking dog on the defensive side of the football. And it felt like the 2 seasons that he was there, he contributed to a lot of winning. Obviously, the first year he was there, they made it to the Super Bowl. And then last year they won the Super Bowl. I think he's replaceable from like a player skill set. Yeah. But as far as a locker room guy and just like a gritty punch you in the face type of safety, like I liked him. And then I'm going to miss Mekhi Becton too. I'm really happy that he was able to come to Philly and basically save his career.
Yeah, revive his whole career.
I'm really happy that he went and got paid, but having him on that offensive line was so fun. That offensive line was just gigantic with him next to Lane.
Yeah, he's 6'7", 363 pounds. Like he's
playing guard. Guard. It's crazy. But yeah, I think everybody else, I think they'll be able to find replacements for all these guys, but those were 2 guys that I'll probably end up missing the most.
Completely feel you. I personally think that who the Eagles are going to miss the most is that beef on that D line, which they are kind of famous for at this point in this iteration of this run. Losing Josh Sweat, losing Milton Williams, those are just two guys who were just big impact players for them over the last few years. So I think that's who they'll end up missing the most. But
Yeah.
um,
Josh Sweat led the team in sacks, so it's
yeah,
going to
he's
be
good.
interesting. I have a couple questions for this team going into the season that I wrote down, but I can get there at the end of this.
Yeah, when we could, if it's about the 2025 season, when we do the 2025 prediction, if you could wait for that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Free agency moves: Aziz Ojulari, Josh Uche, Adoree Jackson, Charlie Hewlett, Kyle Granson, AJ Dillon, Patrick Johnson, Aver Williams, Terrace Marshall Jr., Matt Pryor. I don't really like any of the names that they brought in during this free agency period, and I'm not sitting here being like, "Oh, the Eagles needed a big splashy name to make something happen." I just don't think a lot of these guys are good football players.
Kenyon Green they traded for as well. But
The
yeah, the
Texans,
worst offensive lineman in the NFL.
yeah, which who knows? In the system of the Eagles' offensive line, they could probably get the best out of him. But everybody that they brought in right here, they're just not very good football players, and they haven't been along any of the stops of their along the way.
Yeah, these are very, very hit or miss as far as you're hoping that one of these guys lands as far as being able to figure it out in a new system in a new location. But that list of guys is obviously nothing to write home about. You have to take shots on guys when you are invested monetarily in so many other positions and are going to be moving forward. So they have a lot of guys that they have a couple guys on defense that they're going to need to pay, and this is just the unfortunate part of that is having a lot of talent elsewhere. You're going to have to bring guys in on 1 year prove it deals and kind of hope that it pays off.
To get to the 2025 NFL draft, if you want to go deep in and do the whole nine, feel free if you feel like you need to. I want to just highlight two of their picks: Jahad Campbell in the first round and Andrew Mabuka in the second round. We made a video about this, I think, where I spoke on this. Is just like this was weird to me. This draft for the Eagles, where I do think they needed secondary help with Andrew Mabuka, so I will give them like a check mark on that. Like you needed a player to step in the secondary, whether that was corner or safety, because I think that they're pretty thin at both of those spots.
Yeah.
To waste your first round pick on an off-ball linebacker, which the only thing, and I get it, he might play edge, he might do this, that, and the third, whatever. But the first thing that everybody said was, well, he's going to have to get shoulder surgery. He's going to have to do this. His knees are messed up. Apparently he has a checkered history of injury. And the thing that they did was they traded up with the Chiefs for legitimately like no reason at all. It was like
the Chiefs weren't taking
it was like a move that was just like when it was made, it was like, well, the Chiefs are taking an lineman no matter what. And I felt like that pick was a little out of character for this regime in Philadelphia, where they lost guys on the defensive line and edge rusher, and we'll get into their edge position when we do the 2025 preview. That is a weak room for them right now at this point. And I thought that if they were to make a splashy move at any point in the draft, it would have been to trade up for one of those edge rushers who were falling. Maybe like a James Pierce Jr. or Mike Green, who fell to the second round. The Eagles don't really care about taking shots on guys who have kind of like a questionable history. It seems like they're comfortable with their culture to be able to figure that out within their walls, and they've proven that they could do that. So I think that although I like the Mabuka pick, I don't think that how everybody has packaged him, like Eagles fans and everybody who are so excited about him, that's a big ask to come in and ask a rookie to like come in and dominate like that in the second round. And with their
especially in back-to-back years.
Correct.
They had two rookies dominate last year, and asking another one to come in and be play at that high of a level in another year is asking a lot.
It's asking a lot. And that first pick, I just felt like that Jahad Campbell pick. Why throw in a time where you just said this? Look at all of the names that they have across this roster that they have to pay. They have some guys coming up on the defense that who are young who are going to have to get paid. I felt like if up at any point, like, or stay put and take one of those edges who have fallen to you, I felt like that would have been the best case scenario. I feel like taking that Jahad Campbell pick it was a little bit of a throwaway of a pick. And if he comes out this year and dominates, but they don't need off-ball linebacker help. Like, they just signed Zach Bond to a deal. So I just question that move by them in the first round. And if you want to talk about more of their draft and what you think they did, not, but realistically, if somebody is talking about like a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round pick, like, good for you for being so well read and researched, because I don't have time to do all that.
Yeah, I do think the Jahad Campbell pick is a gamble. I don't think he's going to need surgery though this upcoming year. He's been practicing, so I would say that's a good sign. But
Yeah,
I agree. I would have loved if they were to take an edge, just because of Jaleel Hunt and Nolan Smith are two guys that are going to be asked to step into the starting edge rusher roles, and they haven't played a full, like, they haven't really, Jaleel Hunt especially hasn't played a full season at edge rusher
they haven't done anything
as a starter. He
Yeah.
and Nolan Smith played rotationally a lot down the stretch and did a good job, but asking somebody to do that for 17 games is a lot different than coming in situationally and rotationally and doing it at a high level then. So I agree with you there. The safety that they took from Texas, I think, was a good move. They definitely need secondary help, especially after getting rid of CJ Gardner-Johnson. It's probably going to come down to him and Sidney Brown as the other safety spot. And Sidney Brown is similar to CJ Gardner-Johnson, I would say. Like, not necessarily like the greatest in coverage, but will come down and hit you in the face. And I'm pretty sure that Andrew Makuba is a little bit more coverage related. Ty Robinson and Mac Williams, those were their other two picks. They're out of the first four. I don't think it's even worth really going into anybody else, but
if they pop, then we'll make an apology video.
Yeah, sorry. But I think Ty Robinson is interesting because I think he'll get a good chance to come in and be like a rotational defensive lineman for them, which they absolutely are going to need. And I think they've done a pretty good job of having guys that are really under the radar come in and play well rotationally, at least to start, along that defensive line. Because, like, nobody knew who Milton Williams was until last year. And he was decent the year before rotationally. And then he had a crazy season last year. And
for sure,
that's, I kind of think, what they're expecting to happen with his name is Mojo Ojomo.
Yes.
He is he'll be another defensive tackle that plays and rotates in. I'm not expecting him to be Milton Williams at all. I'm expecting him to be like, to at least like make an impact like Milton Williams did the year before he went off.
That's fair. So,
but they also took Kyle McCord.
Yeah, special. All right, well, let's get into now we're kind of rounding it in. We went over the 2024 season. What's going on in the 2025 season? The Vegas win total for the Philadelphia Eagles is at 11.5. For them to win the division is minus 135. Super Bowl is plus 750. Saquon Barkley MVP plus 5,000. Jalen Hurts plus 2,000 for MVP. And then Jalen Carter Defensive Player of the Year, which I will play at plus 3,300. Am I missing?
Really? Where'd you get 3,300? You did FanDuel, right?
Yeah.
I saw it at 22, unless I looked at the wrong person.
Okay, well, I did this a little while. I did this in June, so it could have changed. Subject to change.
Yeah, it's at 22 now.
Okay, so my bad on that one. So people are betting Jalen Carter. That it sounds like.
Yes.
How do you feel about their total wins? I mean, they won 14 games last year. It's at 11.5. Do you like them to go over, under? Do you have any feels to start this season?
I have another thing that I wanted to throw out there.
Let's do it.
The Saquon Barkley Offensive Player of the Year line is plus 550. Odds of it happening back to back, take your shot on it. But
That's a bad odds. You talking about you and your futures. Noah.
No,
likes
I wrote
future
down.
odds.
I'll read you all the futures I wrote down, and I did this for all the teams.
He's pissed. He's pissed. Noah will be like, I love this guy as comeback player of the year, and he's like the odds-on favorite. It's like, how often does an odds-on favorite win a fucking a season-long award?
These are the ones that I put, and I tried to do this pretty consistently for all the teams. I tried to give like 2 MVPs, 1 or 2 offensive players of the year, 1 or 2 defensive players of the year, and then if they were a team that drafted within the top like 25, 20, a rookie of the year, offense or defense. So I had Jalen and Saquon both MVP odds. Saquon offensive player of the year. I had an AJ Brown offensive player of the year, Jalen Carter defensive player of the year, and Nolan Smith defensive player of the year. Those were just like the best odds. Those are just the best odds for defensive player of the year for the Eagles.
If Nolan Smith wins defensive player of the year, I'll cut my arm off.
I was doing it because it's that team's 2 best players odds for defensive player of the year.
Fair.
There's some worse ones that I have on some of these other teams.
So real quick, what do you like? 1, do you like them to win the division this year? 2, do you like their win total and where it's sitting at currently? I feel like those are 2 good questions to have.
Yeah, I have them going 12-5 and winning back-to-back NFC East titles. And then I think, obviously, with that, they make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. If they didn't, things went really wrong.
Well, impossible if you win the NFC.
So I want to go to the Eagles' strength of schedule. They face the 4th hardest strength of schedule of their 2024 opponents that who they play of the 2024 opponents, 11 games against 2024 playoff teams. Obviously, several primetime games, several short weeks. Some of the schedule reviews here is like tough start to the season. Dallas to open up the season at home. I just think Dallas is obviously healthy. It's going to be a different team this year. Kansas City at Kansas City. LA Rams at home. Tampa Bay away. Jalen Hurts is 1-4 versus Tampa Bay to start, and then in his career. And then honestly, I think they kind of lucked out. They got Denver at home. If that Denver was an away game, that could have been another potential like red flag type of game. And then week 16, 17, 18, they have Commanders, Bills, Commanders. I'm not as high on the Commanders as everybody else is going into this season, but just of note, going up against a division rival twice in the last 2 weeks of the season and then throwing the Bills into the mix too, who are always going to be good. Definitely some tough stretches of games here for the Philadelphia Eagles this year.
Yeah, the middle portion of their season is a little bit easier, but starting out with those that stretch of 5 games is not easy. But with that being said, I have them starting out the season going 4-1,
undefeated.
Yeah, no, I honestly think that they win against Dallas. I think they lose to the Chiefs, and then I think they beat the Rams, Bucks, and Denver to start.
Yeah, my biggest bet of the season this year is just going to be that Dallas game to start the year. I think the Eagles drop that game to Dallas. They always split to start the season. They're a touchdown favorite at this point. People are really, we'll get to it when we get to Dallas, but people are sleeping on the Dallas Cowboys extremely heavy, and you're getting a fully healthy version of the team. So I like them to drop that first game. I think that they could beat the Chiefs, but it's at Kansas City. I'm just going to give that to the Chiefs. And then if we just go based off history, I think they lose to Tampa Bay. I think that they could start the season before they get into that New York, Minnesota, New York type thing. I think that they could start the season a little bit slower than what people are probably going to be anticipating, just because that's not a slouch schedule to start the year in any way, shape, or form.
No, you're going against
Dogs.
I'll never like if Dak is playing, I'll never like count the Cowboys out. Um, you're going up against a healthy Dallas team, like you said, and then you're playing 4 playoff teams, one of which Super Bowl, you just played in the Super Bowl. The other, you played 3 times in the season or 2 times in the season and got the best of them both times. And then you're heading to Tampa, a place that they historically do not play well. I think that Tampa Bay game I'm nervous about that already to start the year, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how they look after these first 3 games.
For sure. 2025 season predictions. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Go ahead. You can go.
2025 season predictions. I have the Philadelphia Eagles going 9-8 and finishing second in the division. Just historically, we talked about this. Like, this division always gets split up. They haven't had like back-to-back winners in like however many years it was. Last year clearly was a down year for the Cowboys. The Cowboys fell off a cliff. They had a ton of injuries. At a point, it was just like, what's the point of even playing? A lot of our top guys and guys who were banged up ended up resting. And then the Commanders kind of took a step forward. I don't think the Commanders are the team to do that this year again. So I could see the Eagles going second in the division. The reason that I have them taking a step back from last year is I have questions about this defense as a whole. I think that when you look at what they have right now, I think when you look at their secondary, there are some really good pieces in their secondary, but as a full cohesive unit, I'm not loving it. I think that they're kind of in the same sort of position that they were 2 years ago when their corners positions started to really lack. Same thing with safety. I think that their safety position got worse. I think their corner position got worse. Then I'm starting to look at, we kind of alluded to it a little bit, like their secondary. If you're telling me that Ringo is playing meaningful snaps for you, I'm a little worried about it. Adoree Jackson, Eli Ricks, Andrew Mabuka, he's a rookie. If that secondary struggles, which I think that they will, then I'm starting to look at the pass rush. This pass rush, we kind of alluded to it a little bit when we just talked about it. This is a weaker pass rush than they've had in years past. They've lost a lot of key players over the last few years. And I'm not liking the names that they have and the production that is correlated with those names who they have in the building right now. I don't know if any of those guys can really take that next step, which then you're pretty much looking at Jalen Carter, which I think he's fully capable of doing, to be a true crazy disruptor the entire season, which I think he can be. But I think that that's just a lot to ask of one guy. And I think that that rest of that room have really taken like a step down. And just the last thing here is just the wide receiver in the pass game. Like we talked about, it needs to get better. If it doesn't get better this season, I think that there will be, unless if they go and win another Super Bowl, which could potentially happen, I'm not putting that past anybody. I'm looking at the Eagles regular season as not a throwaway, but an opportunity for them to potentially figure things out. And when it's time to go, this team has been here for a very, very long time, and they know how to flip the switch. And I kind of give the Eagles the benefit of the doubt to be able to flip that switch when it matters most. So this is a regular season prediction of them kind of taking a step back in many ways, but I am worried about the defense as a whole. And then the thing that I want to see improve is just, I need to see Jalen Hurts develop better as a better passer. He has taken steps back the last 2 seasons as a passer, and you could see it not just in his game, but in the offense overall, finishing almost dead last in the pack in passing yards per game and all of the advanced stats. The team MVP that I have this season is Jalen Carter. I think that he could be I think he could firmly cement himself in the defensive player of the year category this season if everything that I just said is kind of lines up how they do, and they are leaning on Jalen Carter to be that true game wrecker week in and week out, which I think he can do. So that's my team MVP.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go over what my questions are leading into 2025 for the Eagles. Is that fair?
Yeah, do what you got to
Yeah,
do.
I think you hit on a lot of things that I also am concerned about. Who's going to be the corner opposite of Quinyon Mitchell? The names that they have over there, they obviously lost Slay to the Steelers in a trade, or no, free agency, and then Isaiah Rodgers to the Vikings. A lot of unknown with what is Adoree Jackson as far as he's probably we kind of know what he is, but
He's a
what is
special
he going
team.
to be? What is he going to be like in this Eagles defense? What is Eli Ricks? What is Keely Ringo? A lot of unknown on the other side of the field, opposite of Quinyon Mitchell. Safety, I think Sidney Brown played okay in some of the games that he actually got to play in before he got hurt, but again, really small sample size. Behind him is a rookie that you drafted in the second round. The next question that I have is who's going to make up for the loss of Josh Sweat at edge? He led the team in sacks last year. It's really hard as a defensive tackle to necessarily lead the NFL in sacks. But if there is a guy to rely on defensively, the Eagles have him in Jalen Carter. But that doesn't mean that you can just be throwing nobodies out there on the edge for 17 games. They're going to need Azeez Ojulari or Josh Uche to come in and be just moderate production, not even come in there and be a full-fledged replacement. I think Nolan Smith and Jaleeks Hunt showed a lot of good things at the end of the season, but again, haven't had full season as number one guys on the edge. And then my last question is, how is this offense going to look with another offensive coordinator? One of the things that Kellen Moore did really well was, even though it wasn't at the same rate that the rest of the NFL was doing it, he did a great job with motion, and Jalen was a significantly better passer in an offense that ran a lot of motion versus not. So plays that there were motion, Jalen was second in passer rating with 116.6, 10th in completion percentage at 69.3, 8.9 yards per attempt, which was second, and 7.3 touchdown rate, which is fifth. So if I'm the OC, I'm looking at that and saying, okay, Jalen is really good with motion. Let's keep incorporating that. And then this goes back into what we were talking about with the running back room. How many touches are they going to give Saquon Barkley per game at the beginning of this season? Maybe we see him get more touches at the beginning because they have a little bit tougher schedule, and then sort of slow it down in the middle and then ramp it back up. But I'm interested to see what that's going to look like. The passing game needs to be better, and I don't know if Saquon's going to get nearly as many touches as he did last year, but we'll see. My season prediction for them is to go 12-5, like I said. I think they just have too much talent. And I think that defense and Vic Fangio was just phenomenal. I had an MVP of last season, and I think Vic Fangio was the MVP of the 2024 season. As phenomenal of a year that Saquon Barkley had, I think Vic Fangio completely turning around that defense and taking them from one of the worst in a lot of categories to one of the best in those same categories cannot be overstated. But I do love your pick for Jalen Carter for MVP of this team for 2025. I think if this defensive line is going to be as good, he's going to have to go crazy.
Definitely.
Said a lot there.
No, I mean, that's completely right. And it sounds like where me and you just have like a little bit of a disagreement is just how they're going to start their season pretty much. So we'll know pretty quickly if they're going to be a 12-win team or kind of finish in that second tier of like a wild card spot. And I think that is completely fair. All of the critique, I'm just very worried about, like, one, it's really hard to go back to back, no matter what anybody says. And just there is a lot of key, like, important positions over the last few seasons of all-time greats who have, like, either left in free agency or have, like, retired. And at some point, and we know it might not be this year, it might not be next year, it might be the 3 seasons from now, but at some point that's really going to matter and catch up to them, and not the wheels fall off completely, but obviously, like, you could see a change from them winning 14 games to, like, being a 9-win team. That's really all I'm getting to. I think that they have a pretty high floor.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. But I think I just think, like I said, I think there's too much talent. I think Fangio has just done an incredible job, and I think I don't know. I just have I'm not going to sit here and say that this is like the start of a dynasty, because I don't think that that's accurate. But I think that we're in, like, a really good spot as Eagles fans for the next few years. And them going 9-8 would be a shock to me with the amount of talent that they have on both sides of the football.
Hey, it would have been a shock to a lot of people the year after they went to the Super Bowl, and that's what happened. So it's just,
but think about it. They were that bad and they still won 11 games.
A lot goes into that prediction of, and it goes back to the beginning of this, the 8-2 and 1 possession games, the Saquon Barkley piece of this, the passing game piece of this, the roster turnover, who they have filling in for those specific roles, all goes into that. I don't think that I'm not sitting here saying that they're going to miss the playoffs and be a 1-win or a one and done in the playoffs. I just think that this is a team now that has the ability to flip switches now, and they're not in an easy division. I think that the Commanders obviously took a step forward last year. I don't know how good they'll be this year. Like, I think them winning 7-8 games is realistic, and splitting with the Eagles could also be very realistic. And then when Dak plays a fully healthy season, he's pretty much a walking double-digit win guy. So that's just something else to take into account, where if Dak is fully healthy this year, there's a good chance that that the Dallas Cowboys is a 10-win football team. So that's just a very tough division. I think it's a little bit, like, easier to look at last year when you just have, like, the Cowboys and the Giants were just non-factors. Like, they just, like, didn't matter at all. I don't think the Giants are slouches this year either. I just don't know I don't know if they'll win a game against the Eagles, but I do like their defense, but that's a conversation for a different day. But do you have anything else you want to say about the Philadelphia Eagles before we close out, or are you good with everything that you had to say?
No, I'm good. I'm focused on 2025.
Nice.
I just spit it. Good girl, we're getting paper as a passion. Collect the stacks and bring it back, man, and take